So what is this primary key thing that we keep talking about? Well, let's take an example file, our PK employees, which is actually an Excel file, as a way of demonstrating the need for a primary key. And when it comes to humans and a lot of human products, so products we might buy from a shop, for example, it is quite difficult to come up with a unique way of identifying somebody or something. For example, here in our list of employees, if we were trying to talk about a particular person, perhaps someone called John Smith, which happens to be everybody in our employees list, we would have to add in further fields of information so that you could distinguish the person you are referring to. So I wouldn't just be able to say, John Smith did this. I would have to say John Smith from Thirsk, and that would restrict our number of John Smiths down to 11, but that's still not accurate enough. I then perhaps would have to say, actually, the 42-year-old John Smith from Thirsk. That would restrict us down to 7 people. To be more restrictive, I would then need to add in more data. Perhaps I'd also have to add in that it was a butcher. So I could say, actually, it's John Smith, the 42-year-old butcher from Thirsk, and that will reduce it to potentially 4 different people. So then perhaps I could add in his hair colour. So it's the brown-haired butcher that is 42-year-old from Thirsk called John Smith. And that way we have a unique reference for a person. But that is a lot of information to repeat every time you want to reference this particular individual. And if we'd actually gone for black-haired butcher 42-year-old called John Smith from Thirsk, there would have been 2 of them. So then we'd have to think of another way of distinguishing between them. Much easier than that is to give each of our individuals an ID number. So if I were to insert another column here, add a new column heading of ID, and then give each of our employees here a unique reference. Now they're simply going to have a consecutive numbering system that starts at 1 and goes up in 1, but they now have a unique reference. So instead of me trying to describe a particular John Smith and his job and his hair colour and his marital status and his age, I simply say it's actually employee number 8. Then I can go to the database, look up employee number 8, and I will get all the information that I need. So the primary key is that unique reference. So by giving each individual record in each of our tables a unique reference, a primary key, we have that single reference for any particular person or any particular item. That way, there is no confusion. So when we ask the database to delete a particular record, if we use the primary key, we know it's going to get the correct record. If we need to link one record to another and we link the primary key, then we know we're linking to the correct record. It's vital that we use primary keys in our data so that Access knows which records we are referring to, and it becomes much simpler to then uniquely identify any one row. Now this is for employees, but we could do exactly the same in sheet 2, which is full of beds. Here we have a number of styles, sizes, widths and patterns, but there is a lot of repetition. Penshaw style, for example, has 2 different sizes, but even if we were to restrict the width, we have width 3, size 6, Penshaw. That's 3 particular beds it could be. 2 of them are check and 1 is tartan. So if we were to ask the warehouse guy to go and select this bed for us, he could come back with the wrong one quite easily. However, if we give each of our beds a product ID, and again it can be something as simple as a numerical numbering system, so each new bed that enters our warehouse gets given the next number in the list. Now when we tell him we want a Penshaw size 6 width 3 in check, we can tell him we actually want the bed with ID 10 stamped on it. That way we will get the correct bed brought out from the warehouse. If we then use the correct employee reference, it will then be given to the correct employee. So that unique reference is vitally important when storing your data and then re-accessing that data in not only Access, but in any database system. So that's the primary key. Now what you will find in Access, when you create a table, if you don't actually define a primary key, you will be prompted to define a primary key. That's how important it is, not to be forgotten. Sometimes a primary key will present itself to you. Products may come in with a unique product ID. Zip codes are unique for an area. Vehicle registration numbers are unique for a vehicle. So sometimes in life, unique references, primary keys, identify themselves. Other times they don't, and we need to use Access's auto number as the easiest way of giving unique references to each of our records.